Okay, Mr. Buston, we ready to go?
Yes, sir. We're ready.
Okay. We'll call to order tonight's Committee of the Whole for the Auburn City Council for June the 16th, 2020. The City Council should have the minutes from the June 2nd Committee of the Whole meeting. Are there any additions or corrections to those minutes? If not, do I have a move to approve?
Move for approval.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right, have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. The minutes carry. Mr. Buston, Annual Citizen Survey.
So this evening, we have a presentation somewhat different than we're used to by ETC Institute of our annual citizen survey. We're going to stream it through the Zoom client. So you will see here in just a few seconds the video start. It's about 20 minutes.
Will we have an opportunity to ask questions afterwards?
You will be getting the document later this week. We were going to have it for you this evening if you come to a in-face meeting, but yes, we'll answer what we can.
Thank you. Thank you. I have no audio coming through.
Y'all might want to go ahead and mute your microphones. Mute us too.
Jim, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, let me see how to mute it. Cause I hear the train, so that's ring.
Sorry, but I have no audio coming through from our guest speaker.
Neither do I.
I'm missing it as well.
We're unmuted now, Jim.
Okay, go ahead.
We can't hear.
Okay. I'm gonna try to just do the desktop instead.
You still don't have any audio?
No, sir.
No.
No.
Please hold.
Hello, Mayor and City Council. My name is Jason Murado. I'm with ETC Institute, and ETC is a market research firm based in Olathe, Kansas, which is in the Kansas City area. And the thing we specialize in is doing community surveys for local governments all across the country. And today I'm going to go over the results of the 2020 citizen survey that we conducted for the City of Auburn. And we've been conducting your survey for about the past 15 years or so. Now, if you've seen the full report, it's very detailed and very comprehensive. So today what I'm going to go through is really the high-level key findings from the survey. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So I mentioned that ETC Institute is based in the Kansas City area, but we're a national leader in providing market research for local governments. We've been doing this type of work for over 35 years. And in the last 10 years alone, we've conducted surveys in more than 900 communities and 49 states. So this is really the type of work that we specialize in. This is just a quick rundown of what I'll go through today. I will go over the purpose and methodology of the survey. What I call the bottom line up front is our main conclusions from the survey. And then I'll go through the major survey findings to show how we came to those conclusions. And normally at the end of this, I would take questions because I would be there in person giving the presentation. But given the circumstances, we're doing this by video today. So I believe you'll have the opportunity to email me with questions, and then I'll respond to those as quickly and thoroughly as I can. So there's several reasons to conduct a survey like this. One is to get an objective assessment of how satisfied residents are with major city services. This survey is also a great way to help determine priorities for the community, what residents feel are the top priorities. And then we're also able to measure trends from previous surveys. Each year we tweak the survey a little bit, but a lot of the questions remain the same year after year. That way we can measure the trends. And then we're also able to compare your results with other communities across the country. So just a little bit about the survey. The survey is 7 pages long, which is a pretty standard length for one of our community surveys. I mentioned it includes a lot of the same questions that we've asked before. The survey is administered by a combination of mail and online to randomly selected residents throughout the city, and that's our standard methodology for these types of surveys. Our goal was to get at least 600 completed surveys, and we ended up with 642, so we had a good response. And one thing we always do when we conduct these surveys is, as we're collecting the data, we check the demographics of survey respondents to make sure it reflects the actual population of the city. So we make sure we have a good representation by those key demographic areas, such as age, gender, race, and ethnicity. And the results of these 642 surveys at the 95% level of confidence has a margin of error plus or minus 3.8%. So essentially that means that if we conducted this survey the same way 100 times, 95 times the results would be plus or minus 3.8% from what we're reporting. So the results aren't perfect, but really it's a very small margin of error. So here we have a map of the city. The red dots are households that completed a survey. So we had a good representation really from all parts of the city. So here's our main conclusions from the survey. We found that residents have a very positive perception of the city. Just listed a couple of examples here. 95% of survey respondents rated the City of Auburn as an excellent or a good place to live, and 93% rated Auburn as an excellent or a good place to raise children. And these are among the very highest numbers in the nation. We also found, once again, just like in previous surveys, that satisfaction with city services is much higher in Auburn than it is in other communities. You rated above the U.S. average in 57 out of the 61 areas that we compared. And we'll look at this in more detail in just a little bit. But in most of those areas, you rated significantly higher than other cities, such as 20, 25, even 30% or more higher than other communities in a lot of these areas. And then there's a couple areas that especially stand out. One is the overall quality of city services. Now, this is one of the most important questions on the survey, because here we're asking residents to take into account all the different services that you provide and really give an overall satisfaction rate for how well you're doing. And in that area, you're rated 36% above the U.S. average. Then another area that really stands out is the overall quality of customer service. There you're rated 32% above the U.S. average. And then we found the top overall priorities are traffic flow and then maintenance of city infrastructure. And those were the top two priorities in the last survey as well. So first we'll take a look at just some general perceptions that residents have of the city. So we asked residents to rate their perception in a number of different ways. And you can see the dark blue are those who are very satisfied, the light blue is satisfied, the yellow is neutral, and we interpret neutral as meeting expectations. It's a rating of a 3 on the 5-point scale. And then the pink are those who are dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. So one of the things that really stands out here is the second row down, overall quality of city services. So again, here we're asking residents to kind of think big picture and rate all the services that you provide. And you can see that 84% of respondents are either very satisfied or satisfied, and that's compared to only 3% who are dissatisfied. So that's one of the best ratios in the country, those who are satisfied versus dissatisfied with the overall quality of city services. Here we ask residents to rate other aspects of quality of life in the city. And really one of the things that stands out here is how few people give a rating of below average or poor for any of these areas. People are very satisfied with all different aspects. And the areas that rate the highest are Auburn as a place to live and as a place to raise children. For each of those, well over 90% of respondents gave a rating of excellent or good, and only 2% gave a rating of below average or poor. Now, this was the very first question on the survey. Here we asked residents to rate major categories of city services. So here we're asking residents to rate these areas at the big picture departmental level. And then later on in the survey, we asked them to rate some more specific areas within some of these categories. So one of the things that stands out here is how few residents are dissatisfied with most of these areas. Other than traffic flow, for every single other area, less than 20% of residents were dissatisfied, and in most cases, it's even 10% or less. Now, the lowest rated area is traffic flow, but even for that, you have well over 40% of respondents who are either very satisfied or satisfied, compared to 28% who are dissatisfied. And these satisfaction ratings have improved since we last conducted the survey a couple of years ago. And it's also not unusual for a fast-growing community to have traffic flow be their lowest rated area. Now, the highest rated areas are the quality of police, fire, and ambulance services, the school system, garbage recycling and yard waste collection, and then library services. For each of those, you have over 85% of respondents who are either very satisfied or satisfied, and then 5% or less who are dissatisfied. Now here we have a map of the city, and what we did here is broke these results down by census block group. So these are very small areas, and what this does is it tells us if residents in different parts of the city are rating services differently. Now we created a map like this for every question on the survey, asked on a 5-point scale. So there's over 100 maps in the report. There's just a couple I wanted to go over today. This first map is for the overall quality of services provided by the city. And you can see the entire map is blue. In fact, in some of the map area, there it's dark blue, which is the highest possible rating. So what this tells us is that residents in all parts of the city are satisfied with the overall quality of city services. Now, sometimes what happens is even if the satisfaction ratings are very high overall, once you break the results into these small census block groups, you see some pockets where areas where residents might be dissatisfied. So every time the entire map is blue, it means you're doing a great job providing services equally throughout the city. Now this map is for Auburn as a place to live. Here you can see the entire map is dark blue, which means residents in all parts of the city are very satisfied with the city of Auburn as a place to live. So I mentioned earlier that satisfaction with city services is much higher in Auburn than it is in other communities. So we'll take a look at some specific examples of that. Now, for these next few charts, the blue line are Auburn residents who are either very satisfied or satisfied, and then the yellow line are the satisfaction ratings from residents all across the U.S. Now, this first chart is for major categories of city services. And as we go through these, I put blue arrows by places where you rate significantly higher than the national average. So in other words, 5% or more. And there's no areas where you rate significantly below the national average. But if you did, it would have a red arrow. So you can see here, just about every area you rate significantly higher than the national average. There's a few areas I especially wanted to point out. If you look at customer service, you have a 74% satisfaction rating. The national average is only 42%. And then if you look below that, communication with the public, you have a 74% satisfaction rating. National average is only 46%. Now, the only area that rates below the national average is traffic flow, but even that is not much below. You have a 47% satisfaction rating, which is actually up about 5% from the last survey. So it's headed in the right direction. But the national average is only 51%. So you're really pretty much on par with other communities. Here are comparisons for perceptions of the city. There's two areas I especially wanted to point out here. This second row down shows the overall quality of city services. You have an 84% satisfaction rating, and the national average is below 50%. So this is one of the highest rated areas in the country, your quality of overall city services. And then the other one I want to point out is the second row from the bottom, value received for city tax dollars and fees. You have a 75% satisfaction rating, which is about double the national average, which is outstanding. So not only are your residents extremely satisfied with the services that you're providing, but they feel like they're getting excellent value for what they're paying. And then here's some more comparisons for perceptions of the city. And you can see you rate much higher than other communities as a place to live, as a place to raise children, and as a place to work. We also asked about city leadership, and you can see that 63% of respondents are either very satisfied or satisfied with the overall quality of leadership provided by the city's elected officials. With the national average is only 38%. So you're 25 percentage points above the national average in that area. You're also 25 percentage points above the national average when it comes to the effectiveness of the city manager. And then you also rate much higher than the national average when it comes to the level of public involvement in local decisions. Now, we rated 11 different areas of public safety. For every single one of them, you rate significantly higher than the national average. In fact, in each case, you rate more than 10 percentage points above the national average. One of the areas that really stands out here the most is the overall quality of police protection. You have a 92% satisfaction rating, and you can see that the national average is below 70%. We also rated 8 different areas of city maintenance, and you can see in all these areas, you also rate significantly higher than the national average. And this covers a wide variety of different things: maintenance of streets, sidewalks, traffic signals, overall cleanliness of streets, a lot of different categories covered here. And then here are the comparisons for garbage, recycling, sewer, and water services. And once again, in all of these areas, you rate much higher than the national average. In this case, you rate more than 20 percentage points above the national average for all 6 of these areas. And then for communication, you also rate much higher than the national average in all 3 areas that we compared, which includes the city's website, the availability of information about city programs and services, and then social media. So we also compared these results to previous years. Now, overall, the satisfaction ratings are down a little bit compared to 2018, but overall, they're significantly higher than the first year that we conducted the survey back in 2006. So here are a list of the biggest increases and decreases in satisfaction compared to 2018. So a lot of the biggest increases are related to recycling. So we have the curbside recycling, um, material types accepted for recycling, collection of garbage, recycling, and yard waste. The overall effectiveness of communication with the public has had a big increase. Recycling at the city's drop-off recycling center. And then traffic flow also is one of the areas that had the biggest increases in satisfaction compared to 2018. Now, the biggest decreases compared to a couple of years ago are community centers, new residential development, walking trails, outdoor athletic fields, the overall appearance of downtown, and senior programs. So a lot of these are related to parks and recreation, but I know there's a lot of ongoing improvements right now, such as the new community center that's being built. So I imagine these ratings will be much higher over the next few years. Now here are comparisons for major categories of city services. And you can see here we have the satisfaction ratings for 2020, 2018, and 2006. So there's 3 areas that have had a significant increase in satisfaction going back to 2018, which is collection of garbage, recycling, and yard waste. The satisfaction ratings increased from 82 up to 90%. We also had a significant increase in communication with the public. You can see the satisfaction ratings increased by 8 percentage points going back to 2018, and it's up 14 percentage points going back to 2006. And then the other area that's had a significant increase in satisfaction is traffic flow, which is up from 42 to 47%. The only area that's had a significant decrease in satisfaction is parks and recreation. It's went from 82 down to 77%. But again, I know there's a lot of improvements in the works, so I would expect those numbers to really increase over the next couple of years. So now we'll take a look at the top priorities for the community. You probably remember this from previous years. This is what we call the important satisfaction rating. And this analysis is based on 2 different types of data. First, we ask residents how satisfied they are with city services. And then the follow-up question is, which of these services are the most important for the city to emphasize? So the idea behind this is that those areas that have a combination of a low satisfaction rating, but are also rated as the most important, should be the highest priorities. So this first chart is for major categories of city services. And here, by far, the top 2 priorities are traffic flow and then maintenance of city infrastructure. And those were the top 2 priorities on the last survey as well. Now, this is really just a different way of looking at the same information. So for this table, if you start to the right, those are the areas that are rated as the most important. And as you move left, the level of importance gets less and less. Now, if you start at the top of this chart, those are the areas with the highest satisfaction rating. And then as you move down, the satisfaction gets less and less. So if you look in this bottom right-hand quadrant where it says opportunities for improvement, those are the areas that have that combination of a low satisfaction rating, but also rated as the most important. So those are really your top priorities. And you can see that includes maintenance of city infrastructure and then traffic flow. So we also create these important satisfaction tables for some specific areas. This one is for maintenance, and you can see here the top 2 priorities are the maintenance of streets and then the adequacy of city street lighting. This is for public safety. Now you'll notice here that there's nothing that falls into the high or very high priority category. And the reason for that is that the satisfaction ratings are so high, really across the board. So there's no areas for concern here. But having said that, the highest priority is efforts to prevent crime. For code enforcement, here the highest priorities are the cleanup of overgrown and weedy lots. And the second highest priority is efforts to remove dilapidated structures. For parks and recreation, here the highest priorities are senior programs, walking trails, community recreation centers, and parks. And then for downtown Auburn, here by far the #1 priority is availability of parking. Residents rate that as significantly more important than any of the other 10 items on the list. Now, there were a few questions that were asked for the first time on the survey this year, so I wanted to go over those questions. We asked residents, compared to other city priorities, how important is it for the City of Auburn to invest in the acquisition and rehabilitation of historically significant buildings for public use? So you can see here that 65% of respondents feel this is either extremely or somewhat important, compared to 12% who say it's either somewhat or extremely unimportant. We asked residents which of these services should receive the most emphasis for funding over the next 2 years, and residents could pick up to 3 of these 5 items. So you can see the areas that they feel should receive the most funding are city infrastructure, public schools, and public safety. And then we asked residents, how satisfied are you with the availability of internet service in your neighborhood? So you can see that 67% of respondents are either very satisfied or satisfied, compared to 18% who are dissatisfied or very dissatisfied. So just a quick recap. We saw that residents have a very positive perception of the city. These numbers are some of the very highest in the country. Well over 90% of respondents feel Auburn is an excellent or a good place to live and to raise children. Once again, the satisfaction with city services is significantly higher than other communities. A couple of the areas that really stand out are the overall quality of city services, customer service, then tax value for value received for taxes and fees with another area that really rated significantly higher than other communities. And the top overall priorities are traffic flow and maintenance of city infrastructure. So that is everything that I had. Normally this is a time where I would answer any questions, but I believe you'll have the opportunity to email questions to me, and I'll answer those just as quickly and as thoroughly as I can. So that is everything that I had for today. So thank you everyone very much for your time.
Okay, we got just a few minutes. Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Buston possibly regarding the survey?
Mr. Buston, will those results be available for, how are we going to make that available to the public?
They will be on our website. We usually do an open line article. They'll be on social media. We didn't want to post anything until you all got your booklets, so we're waiting until we can send you the results before we post it.
Well, I just real quick, I want to commend our public safety. Man, what a response from the public. On 92% approve of what we're doing with our Auburn Police Department. That is fantastic. That is what a response.
Thank you, Brett. Anyone else?
Yeah, Mayor, I'd like to say how much I appreciate the staff. Jim and his staff obviously doing an unbelievable job. Very impressed with all the overall the way the city rates, and we couldn't do it without the fine employees we have, and I can't say enough good about them, Jim and staff, and all of our employees, the work they're doing right now.
Thank you, Tommy. Anyone else? Here, no one. Certainly, I want to echo what Tommy and Brett have said. So thankful for our staff at the city. They've really been getting after it. Been very difficult the last couple of months, the work environment, and they have proceeded ahead and have done an excellent job, and they represent us well. This is a great survey. If you look at it holistically, there's certainly areas for us to continue to work towards and try to improve on, and I hope that's each of our motivations. But thank you, Jim, and thank you for your staff and leadership for what y'all do on behalf of the citizens of Auburn.
Thank you.
Excuse me, go ahead.
I just said thank you.
At this point in time, are there any questions on the agenda for the city manager? Buston, do you have any announcements for us for the?
No, sir.
Tonight? Okay. All right. Do I have a move to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Motion is adjourned. We will start in 1 minute. Okay, at this time, we'll call to order the Auburn City Council meeting for June the 16th, 2020. Lindsay with the roll call.
We have Valerie, Mayor.
Valerie, excuse me, I apologize. I knew that. Valerie with the roll call, please.
Here.
Dixon,
Here.
Griswold,
Here.
Covey,
Here.
Parsons,
Here.
Smith,
Present.
Taylor,
Here.
Witten. Here. Andrews.
Here. Under Mayor's communications tonight, I want to congratulate again all the hard work from all of our staff that help support SIO2 and their expansion here at Auburn. We look forward to their work, hiring 200 more jobs here in this town, and it should be a great thing for our community. And certainly thank you to SIO2 for their confidence in Auburn and expanding here in our community. Are there any announcements from the council?
Yes, sir, Mayor. I'd like to echo what you just said. Our Economic Development Department, as usual, done a great job with that, and it's exciting news and really can use those jobs in the times we're in right now.
Thank you, Tommy. Anyone else?
Mayor, I just want to echo what we said at the committee of the whole. I want to many accolades to our city staff for all the hard work they've done. I mean, nothing rings more true when you get to see survey results and such positive responses. And like you said in the committee of the whole, there's a lot of room for improvement, or there's room for improvement, but I mean, there's a lot of pride there to be found in our city staff. And I'm very thankful for Jim and everybody else for all the hard work and what the quality of service they provide for the city.
Thank you, Brett. Any other council members have an announcement to make tonight? Okay. At this point in time, we'll move towards citizens' communications on the agenda items. If there's something you'd like to speak to tonight, please hit the raise your hand button on your Zoom and let us know. Greg, do we have anybody?
No, sir.
We don't.
No.
All right, at this time, we'll move forward to city manager's communications.
Under city manager's communication this evening, we have the announcement of vacancies on 2 of our boards. We have 1 vacancy on the Board of Zoning Adjustments that's normally referred to as the BZA. This is a supernumerary position. The unexpired term begins upon appointment and ends January 20th, 2023. We have 1 vacancy on the Green Space Advisory Board. The term begins August 8th, 2020 and ends August 7th, 2024. Appointments to both of these boards will be made at the June 21st, 2020 City Council meeting. The next item of business is the consent agenda. Does any council member wish to remove an item from the consent agenda and deal with that item individually?
Anyone from the council? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda carries.
Under ordinances this evening, we have item 9A is the placement of 3 stop signs and 1 25-mile-per-hour sign in the preserve phases 4B and 6A.
I'll introduce the ordinance and ask for unanimous consent.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Does anyone on the council have a problem moving forward with the vote on this evening? Hearing none. Valerie, would you please call roll?
Okay, Dawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Dixon,
Yes.
Griswold,
Yes, ma'am.
Covey,
Yes, ma'am.
Parsons,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes, ma'am.
Taylor,
Yes.
Witten. Yes. Andrews.
Yes. Any questions from the council? Hearing none, do I have a move to approve?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Valerie, would you please call roll to approve?
Dawson,
Yes, ma'am.
Dixon,
Yes.
Griswold,
Yes, ma'am.
Covey,
Yes, ma'am.
Parsons,
Yes.
Smith,
Yes, ma'am.
Taylor,
Yes.
Witten. Yes. Anderson.
Yes.
Under resolutions this evening, we have item 10A1 is Mike Allen requesting a 6-month extension of a previously authorized conditional use approval for Alabama Power Company. This is for the expansion of the electricity substation at 111 North Dean Road.
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Does anyone on the council have any questions tonight? Any comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries.
Item 10A2 is Parker Lewis requesting approval for a parking lot and mobile vendor food court on property located at 550 Martin Luther King Drive. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this item. A public hearing is required.
Do I have a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. At this time, we'll open the public hearing. If you'd like to address the city council, please hit the raise your hand button on your Zoom and give your name and address for the record. Greg, do we have any participants?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Are there any questions from the council?
Yes, I'd like to ask a question on this. Is this the property next to the church?
Yeah, it's right on the corner of Martin Luther King and Donahue. Forrest, you want to weigh in on this?
Sure. It's the property, as you can see on the site plan, it's irregularly shaped, and that's due in large part to the realignment of Martin Luther King Drive with Bragg. The land is set idle for quite some time. I think the property owners had some difficulty in getting some utility out of it. And so this proposal here, I think, sets it up nicely as sort of what I would call a long-term interim use, where the property owner can get some utility out of the property with relatively minimal expense, understanding that down the road, this property is going to certainly be much more valuable for what we would call, not so much in the planning industry, but in real estate terms, a higher and better use.
Okay, so this is the same property actually where they've been parking at all along, right? You know, there was right across from the service station.
Yes, ma'am. If you look on the site plan, you'll see the new or the newer Weagle service station is essentially to the southeast or across from the property that we're talking about tonight.
Okay. And now with the vendor food court, can you explain that one? I mean, are they going to set up a food courts on there? Or
well, I can't assure you that he will do it, but this would give him approval to do that. If you look at the site plan, I guess what I would call sort of the upper right-hand corner or the narrow section of the property, he's got some area there where he plans to build a pavilion, and he could potentially locate multiple food trucks for lunch, most likely for lunchtime, and also certainly during athletic events, primarily football. And he will have, as you can see, the largesse of the property is being essentially proposed for paved pay-to-park parking.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for the council?
Yes, has there been any communication from the church regarding whether they like the idea or don't like the idea?
They certainly would have been notified as an adjacent property owner. The planning department staff received no communication from residents either for or against the proposal.
Okay. And with that being said, Kelly, I actually got a call from the pastor of the church. So I don't think and he feel the way I guess the members does, it's not any different from what they're really doing now. They just paving the area. And so they didn't have a problem with it.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Connie. Any other questions from the council?
The applicant has his hand raised.
Okay, Greg, you see that?
I do.
Okay.
Parker, go ahead.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Parker Lewis.
Yeah, I guess to fill in some of those blanks, Mr. Holt, Nathan Holt owns the property, and there will be a new curb cut that kind of lines up with the gas station driveway across the street, and then kind of a shared curb cut with the church. Mr. Holt, I believe, has spoken to the church and is agreeable to, letting them use some of that parking space on when they have some of their larger events and some of those things. So I'm pretty sure they've spoken already about that. But Mr. Holt is on the call if you've got any questions for Mathen directly. But yeah, it's basically a little pay to park parking surface parking lot, and then I think, like Forrest said, the food vendor, the truck. Food truck would be kind of up there close to the corner, away from the church. If he ever lets a food truck come in on some of these lunch times or some of these afternoons.
Any questions for Mr. Lewis?
Is there an agreement with the golf cart shuttle service for ball games to service this parking lot as like a terminal?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, part of what this property has been serving, Mr. Holt owns the University Station RV park, and part of the design of this parking lot is a place for his buses to sort of drive down Martin Luther King Boulevard, pull into the parking lot, and drop all of those folks off in his shuttle bus. And so that is a sort of a piece of the puzzle for this parking lot. That is definitely one of the services that it will provide.
Go ahead and unmute her then, so in case she says something.
Okay, so the golf cart service that shuttles people to and from the ball game that operates on city streets, I don't know what kind of permits or licenses they have, but they will also use your facility as a terminal for shuttling folks. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, that's really a good question for Mr. Holt to answer. You talking about somebody else's golf cart service?
Yes, one that operates on game days.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Parker. Connie, could you mute yourself? We're hearing some background noise.
Okay, I wanted to ask a question too. Okay.
Okay, Parker, go ahead.
Yeah, to answer Mr. Griswold's question, yes, they're on a game day. Yes, these parking spaces would be available for use. So I would imagine that the shuttle services would be running up to this parking lot as well.
And Mayor, Mr. Holt has his hand raised if you want to recognize him.
Sure. Mr. Holt, would you like to
Yes,
speak?
can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, I'm here to try to answer any questions that any of you may have. I think Mr. Griswold had a question about the golf cart shuttle business. Basically, the golf cart shuttle business, we really have no specific place in town that we pick up and deliver folks to. However, I would like to use this parking lot as a partial staging area for my golf carts to run from and pick people up there and carry them to various places in town.
Any questions from anyone? Kelly, you have another question to follow up with that, or does anyone else have any questions? Kelly, we'll start with you.
Well, I'm not familiar with the service that we have. Apparently, we must have some kind of approved licensed service, because you see the golf carts with their flags and everything on game day, for the shuttles. And I think we have some specific routes approved for them to operate on. I'm just curious whether I'm all for it. If there has to be some additional coordination for use of that lot for that particular service, and perhaps that's something Jim could answer.
I don't believe so. I believe that lot is I think some of the regulations we had, you have to be on roads that are no faster than 30 or 35 miles an hour. Forrest can maybe answer that. There are certain roads you can't be on, but definitely that parking lot fits within the allowed area that golf carts can operate. Forrest, you want to correct me?
Yeah, I think it's a 35-mile limitation. I also think at the point that ordinance was approved, there was a map of sorts that basically showed those roads that were in the confines of essentially the city's core, which is where you would expect to have those lower speed limits anyway.
Okay, thank you all. That's all I have.
And Connie, you had a question?
Yes, I just was curious to know about how many parking spaces is that lot going to be able to accommodate having a food court there and all?
There appears to be somewhere in the vicinity of 125 spaces available for vehicular parking.
Thank you.
Mayor, can I respond?
Sure can. Go right ahead, Mr. Holt.
Mayor and City Council, thank you for looking at my request here. My goal is to create something that would produce a little bit of revenue off that very expensive piece of property. And the parking lot, I think, even though it ain't downtown, I think it can be utilized by various different organizations and people in the city. The food truck court, I vision multiple food trucks. I don't know how many, it just sort of depends on how things go. But I think in my mind, that is a great addition to that part of town that would make, a place that people could come and park their car. If they want to buy something to eat from one of the food trucks, that'd be great. They'd have a good variety to pick from, and then they can leave. And then if somebody wanted to pay to park there, I certainly won't turn down the revenue that produces. But that's my goal. I really do not use this parking, this land for anything except on game day. Now, I have been allowing the church there to park their cars for many years. Anytime they needed the area to park in, of course, they have to park on the grass now. But this is a use that I think would benefit the community and would give me some revenue off of that very expensive piece of land.
Understand.
Mr. Mayor, quickly to answer a question,
Sure.
the low-speed vehicle ordinance allows those vehicles on Martin Luther King Drive from Bird Street to Donahue Drive, and on Donahue Drive from Martin Luther King Drive to Drake Avenue. So they're allowed in the vicinity of this parking lot completely.
Any questions for Megan?
I have one more question for Mr. Holt, if that's okay.
Sure. Mr. Holt, you still with us?
Yes, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Holt, do you anticipate renting spots for RVs during ball games at this lot?
If somebody wants to park an RV and pay for a parking area on a game day, I certainly would not turn that down, but I do not intend on having all the utilities, power, water, and sewer available that I would lease those lots out on game day.
Okay, understand. Yes, so dry camping is going to be allowed. I like that idea. I was just curious about it. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for anyone on the panel here? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Lewis and Mr. Holt. We appreciate it. All right, we do have any other questions or comments from the council? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Item 10A3 is Parker Lewis requesting approval for a multifamily development on property located at 1397 North Dean Road. The Planning Commission unanimously recommended approval of this item, and a public hearing is required.
Move for approval.
Second.
Okay.
I have a motion and a second. At this time, we'll open the public hearing. If anyone would like to address the city council, please notate the raise your hand button and give us your name and address for the record. Greg, do we have anybody?
No, sir.
Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Do I have any questions or comments from the council?
Could you explain how this differs from what's currently allowed there, please?
Forrest, could you go ahead and address that issue?
Sure. A number of years ago, we made a deliberate decision to require conditional use approval for multiple family development in our CDD zone. That's because we were beginning to see apartments and student housing leapfrog over the core and expand into these, I call it a ring of CDD. And CD is quite a permissive zone. It allows a good bit of density. And that was when we were beginning to get concerned about student housing. And this precedes the creation of our private dormitory and ADDU regulations. So any type of multiple family development that is proposed in a CDD area, even though in this particular context it's already surrounded by market rate apartments already, it still requires conditional use approval. And that's an important comment because this project is entirely 1 and 2 bedroom product. It's entirely market rate apartment, so it is not. It is neither a private dormitory nor an academic dwelling, detached dwelling unit.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, have a motion and second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries.
Mayor, those are all the items we have on the agenda this evening.
Any items under the other business from the council?
Hey, I just have a quick point. Did we do a public hearing on that?
Yes, we did.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear us open and close it.
We
I
didn't have any
apologize.
participants, but we did.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, do I have a move to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you.